Okay, here is a little video I'm making to show how to steam up this Aster Mikado, which is a alcohol-fired locomotive. First thing to do is to roll the locomotive, uncouple it first, onto the track. And this confirms a couple of things. That there's nothing binding, that the wheels are rolling freely, so that I know there won't be any problems in that regard. Next thing I check is that both the throttle and the blower controls are free to move. Next I like to make sure that the tender pump is free to move. No water in the tender at this point. Fuel is closed. So I open the fuel. And we won't put too much fuel in because this is just a demonstration of how to actually light it and get it going. I don't need too much. It's a good idea to put a little bit of oil around the O-ring there just to make sure it seals properly. And just finger tight. Open the fuel, watch with the tube underneath to make sure that the fuel is flowing through, which it is. Now I know the fuel is getting to the wicks, and we'll just let it sit like that for a little bit so the wicks get saturated. In the meantime, I will now check the lubricator oil. Different people do this different ways. You can either always put fresh oil in at the end of a run so you know it's ready for next time. I always do it the other way around. I always like to check the oil first, and then I remember whether or not I've done it properly. I just use a little plastic pipette type tool here, squeeze it, put it in. It will now suck up as much water as it can, and when it hits the oil it stops sucking. So I know I've got all the water out. Like that. And we'll put some fresh oil in. Again, different people use different tools to put the oil in. I like very basic, simple equipment. And put the top back on. Be careful not to drop it. It's always a pain when you drop it and you can't find it. Now I'll put some water in the tender. The boiler is half full. Now this is quite important. Always open the bypass and pump for a few times to make sure that the water is circulating right through the system. I can see it coming out the overflow or return pipe here. Now it's done. Now I can close the bypass, keep pumping, and make sure it's going into the boiler, which it is. That's good. Now we're ready to light up with my trusty, very old Aster suction fan. So I can now just put the flame underneath here, and it normally goes pop and you hear it light, and then I can turn the blower on. With the back of your hand you can normally feel if it's hot, and it is, it's coming out nice and hot. I then like to lift this off for a second, put it back on again, And that makes sure all the wicks are alight, because once you remove the suction pan, the flame tends to wander a bit and will pick up the other wicks if they weren't alight. So basically that's all we have to do right now, except wait for some pressure to come up. And we're now 5 minutes and 27 seconds into getting steam up. Lubrication should be done fairly frequently. I don't do it every time because I like to make sure that everything is oiled. I can see some oil in there, so I know all the joints are oil from last time ran. If you run frequently, perhaps once a month, you should turn the engine upside down and make sure all the bearings are well, all the bushings are well lubricated on the wheels and the axles. Of course, the more water you put in the boiler, the longer it will take to steam up. If you only put a little bit of water in, the pressure will come up quickly, but then of course you need to pump water from the tender into the boiler, which will cool it down, and so it doesn't make much difference whether you start with a full boiler and use the blower, as I'll show you in a minute, to help bring up the rest of the pressure. We're just starting to show a little bit of pressure now. The reverser is working. I normally like to get up to about over 1 bar, probably up to 2 bar, which is 28 psi, before I start to use the blower to bring up pressure the rest of the way. So up to about 1 now. And there's a little bit of weeping steam coming out of the safety valves. And we're just coming up to number 2 now. So I can take the fan off, open the blower, which is now creating the draft through the firebox to bring up the pressure more. Of course, the more you open it, the more steam you use to create more pressure. So again, it's a balancing point to don't open it too much and waste steam. So we're coming up to 3 now. At this point, I would like to get rid of some of the water that will build up in the cylinders here by opening the throttle and just letting it run back and forward a bit, and out will come the water. Get it out of the system. And basically, that's it. And now up to pressure. turn off the blower and open the throttle, and off it will go. But I don't have any tractor around right now, so I can't really demonstrate it running properly. But it is running. And that ends today's demonstration. Bye now.